I've always got a huge kick out of identifying lookalikes. Some people say that I look like Luis Guzman. I don't really see it. But if you go to the MySpace page for my old band, I have a collection of people that look like my friends. In college, we made a list of like 120 people that look like my cousin Tommy. And you probably don't know my friends or my cousin Tommy, but it's also fun to identify celebrities that look alike as well. The only problem is that the internet hive mind always beats me to it. I thought that Ruby Rose from Orange is the New Black looked like Justin Bieber, but the internet realized that way before I did. Now, I think I have a few lookalikes that I've discovered that are lesser known. I mean, maybe they're already out there, but maybe they're not. You know what I mean? The first is former Dallas Cowboys football coach and current NFL commentator Jimmy Johnson. Have you ever noticed that Jimmy Johnson looks exactly like the son from Family Circus? I bet you never have, but from now on, you will. I think that's a pretty good lesser known lookalike. And the other one I can think of is Wilbur Ross, the Secretary of Commerce. I see this guy on TV and I'm like, this guy looks familiar. But before I reveal who he looks like, I think we should talk a little bit about Wilbur Ross first. I mean, we might as well talk about politics, right? What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing.
So, Wilbur Ross. Being the crack journalist that I am, I source all of my Wilbur Ross information from a website you probably don't know about. It's called Wikipedia.com. It's pretty under the radar, but I encourage you to check it out. There's a lot of information on that site, and some of it is factual. But here's what I could find out about Wilbur Ross.
Number one, he's a billionaire.
Well, he was a billionaire. The financial disclosures required for him to enter the president's cabinet revealed that he only had $700 million, so Forbes took him off the billionaires list. So, a billionaire but not a billionaire. That doesn't sound familiar, does it? It sounds unique. But what else about Wilbur Ross is unique?
Number two, he was a Democrat until 2016.
So, a former Democrat. Also unique.
Number three, shady ties to Russia.
According to the Paradise Papers, he has shady ties and business dealings with Russia and members of Putin family, which of course also doesn't sound familiar. But here's the thing, you don't amass a $700 million fortune without doing business with some of the companies that our country has sanctions against. And number 4, and perhaps the most important thing.
Politics is boring.
Politics is boring. In this political climate here in America, you can be outraged, but you can't really be surprised. Nothing should shock you, least of all Wilbur Ross. And as for me, I'm neither outraged or surprised. I'm just bored because politics is boring, and I wanted to find something out about Wilbur Ross that wasn't boring. So I took a deep dive into his Wikipedia page and saw that he's a prodigious art collector. He has an art collection valued at $150 million. That's 20% of his $700 million net worth, including $100 million of Rene Magritte paintings. And in case you don't know who Magritte is, some of his most famous paintings are Apple Face Guy, Eyeball Face Guy, and of course, Old Penis Nose. Now, Wilbur Ross's most famous Magritte is The Pilgrim, aka Cutout Face Guy, which is funny because someone with such a familiar face has a painting of a guy with a cutout face. So, who does Wilbur Ross look like? He looks like Jeff Dunham's puppet Walter. Maybe it's just the hair, but to me they look exactly alike. And if you were to say that was an awful lot of build-up for not a very good reveal, that's just because I was trying to make it as disappointing as one of Jeff Dunham's comedy shows. But I think it's funny that I have such a fascination with lookalikes, because I have no interest in the same thing in music. I think the technical term is musical taxonomy. Taxonomy is the science of classification. So musical taxonomy is like when you tell someone you're in a band and they ask what type of music you play, or worse yet, they ask you what bands you sound like. They're trying to classify your music. And I get it. It helps people wrap their heads around what they're hearing if they can anchor it to a point of reference. But it was never something that really concerned me. My favorite type of music is good music, regardless of where it falls on the taxonomical tree. Of course, I am very aware that there is music out there that sounds exactly like other music. Typically, it's compositional borrowing, stealing, or just parallel thinking that creates these similarities. But I'm aware that Flaming Lips' Fight Test sounds exactly like Cat Stevens' Father and Son. And I'm aware that Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters theme sounds exactly like Huey Lewis in the News' I Want a New Drug. And I'm aware that U2, Radiohead, and Coldplay are all essentially the same band. They all play a type of music I like to call British, whiny, cry rock. So now that I've alienated all the fans of each of those bands, I would like to say that musical taxonomy is most out of control with metal and EDM, especially EDM. I think it's because what type of music a DJ spins is more important than who the DJ is. But for metal, I would much rather see a good band than a specific genre of metal, so who knows why there are so many genres of metal? Let me know in the comments if you have a theory. But the interesting thing is, for me, musical taxonomy was never that big a deal. I think it's because digital music became available at just the right time in my life to make genres not particularly important. When I was a kid, I had to buy a tape for $10 or a CD for $15 if I wanted to own the music I heard on MTV. And that makes me sound old. But when I was a teenager, Napster came out. And since then, I've always been excited to hear new music. Whether it was super obscure stuff or just every studio album David Bowie ever released, I wanted to hear it all. Even though the price of music became practically $0, it still had the same value as it did before, to me. And the genre really never mattered to me. I just wanted to hear the good stuff. And I just wanted to play and write the good stuff too when it came to making music. I never tried to emulate other musicians. I never wanted to play guitar like Eddie Van Halen or play bass like Victor Wooten. I just wanted to play as well as I could, to incorporate everything that I'd learned on my musical journey into music that sounded good to my ears, regardless of what type of music that turned out to be. And that's why I have such a great respect for anyone out there making music, whether you're an innovator or an imitator, regardless of how strict your musical taxonomy is. A little piece of you will always find itself into your music. So don't worry about whether you think your celebrity lookalike looks anything like you. And don't worry about whether or not your music sounds too much like someone else's. Just do you, and you'll end up making real art. Art like Apple Face Guy, Eyeball Face Guy, and of course, Old Penis Nose. Take care of yourselves, everyone. Peace.